the dark secrets of why prices are going up. Consumers everywhere are wondering why their grocery carts seem to be getting lighter despite the same amount of spending. Why has the cost of gas risen a staggering 58% in just 1 year? And what could possibly explain beef prices increasing by 21%? We can't control these things, but it helps to know how they affect us, which is why we've put together 10 reasons explaining this global price surge. With so much at risk, you won't want to miss this eye-opening video. 10. Inflation. Inflation has become a recurring problem in many countries, and it can be a source of tremendous worry for people. It affects more than just everyday items such as groceries, even things like flight tickets, credit card charges and basketball game tickets can be subject to inflation. A rise in inflation within a country not only means that its citizens' cost of living increases, but also that the same goods they used to buy for $20 might now cost them $40. This is true even if there is no change in the quality or amount of product purchased from one point in time to another. Although inflation isn't always avoidable, it's important to know what might cause it and its possible consequences, so that people can prepare themselves for the possibility of drastic price increases. 9. Government regulation. Government regulation can be a substantial factor in creating inflation, as seen with the example of a new tariff imposed by the government on importers and exporters. This kind of governmental interference makes it more expensive to move goods in and out of the country, thus prompting affected businesses to raise their prices accordingly. In turn, these higher prices are passed on to consumers who may not realize what did them in until they see their wallets getting less and less full without much explanation as to why. Ultimately, it ends up being an insidious process where even carefully planned budgets suffer from such government-backed restrictions. 8. Change in exchange rate. The foreign exchange market plays an integral role in the increase of prices worldwide. When one country's currency experiences a shift, it can have a domino effect on other countries who use that same currency in international markets. When the dollar weakens against the euro, for example, people from all over are forced to pay more for products because it takes a larger amount of local currency to buy the same number of goods or services. This overall decrease in value and increases in prices can directly influence citizens' lives and cause them to feel desperate or overwhelmed. In addition to affecting prices, this kind of exchange rate fluctuation can also influence domestic policies and interest rates. It is important to understand how these changes impact our lives, so we are better equipped to handle economic shifts as they occur. 7. National debt. The national debt is no joke, and its effects reach far beyond the borders of the government that accumulates it. Unfortunately, due to increasing spending and increasing economic instability, we are rapidly reaching levels of debt that could be truly devastating for our nation and its citizens. Containing this debt is essential in order to keep our economy afloat, promote stability between our nation and other nations around the world, and protect future generations from facing a financial crisis we have foreseen but can't prevent through our complacency. We must act now and do everything in our power to contain this debt, preferably reversing its course while there's still time. Ignoring or shrugging off potential consequences would be extremely unwise, consequences that could trap us in an unescapable cycle of economic insecurity. With the right measures and a collective commitment, we can all help contain the national debt before it's too late. 6. Expanded money supply. In a desperate attempt to stay afloat, many countries are forced to expand their money supply by printing more money. This approach is taken when the amount of physical cash and currency in circulation is higher than what its economic growth rate can support. This has a ripple effect throughout the entire economy as companies and workers experience difficult times when trying to manage their finances due to the new influx of cash in circulation. Therefore, controlling an expanded money supply must be done with caution in order to benefit the national economy, while still maintaining the value of currencies used by individuals and businesses. In addition to creating a sense of overall economic instability, an expanded money supply can also lead to the devaluation of currency and eventually inflation. With such potential consequences, it is important that nations make sure they have a solid plan in place before expanding their money supply. 5. Rising wages. Everyone wants a wage increase, and it seems to make sense: more money, more spending power. But in reality, rising wages often mean rising prices that cancel out the purchasing power of your paycheck. In essence, when wages go up, people suddenly have enough extra money to buy more goods than they were able to before, and this forces manufacturers and retailers to raise their prices to meet the increased demand. So while a wage increase can be beneficial in terms of increasing consumer spending power in an economy, it also has an effect on inflation, which could ultimately detract from that same spending power. It's complicated, but worth understanding these implications when considering how higher wages play a role in our collective economic fate. For shrinkflation. Shrinkflation is a sinister yet pervasive cultural phenomenon that has been affecting consumer buying habits for years. The shrinking of product sizes and quantities with no change in price means that customers are getting less for their money than they initially expected. This often occurs in the food and beverage industry, but can also extend to everyday products in other consumer areas. While shrinkflation may not be officially illegal, it is still a devious practice that preys on consumer financial naivety, leaving hardworking shoppers feeling duped or betrayed by companies looking to increase profits at any cost. Customers should always remain vigilant when buying products, as even though shrinkflation may sound harmless, there could potentially be big consequences as a result of its prevalence among businesses today. 3. Hoarding again. During the pandemic, hoarding became a prominent activity, as people around the world raced to get their hands on essential items like face masks. This behavior created an ethical dilemma in which individuals were manipulating the supply of often life-saving products to create an artificially high demand and increase prices. This lack of any sort of organized distribution system only added to fears that authorities could not control the situation. Indeed, it highlighted how our global economy is more vulnerable than most people ever imagined when it comes to essential supplies. When it comes to hoarding, it is important that people remember the consequences of their actions and think twice before stockpiling items during a crisis. 2. Demand pull. The coronavirus pandemic put the world to a screeching halt and caused an unsettling period of economic, social, and psychological turmoil. While this disruption left many aspects of society, business, and travel paralyzed, thankfully things have started to look more optimistic now that restrictions are beginning to loosen. Unfortunately, however, this positive shift has been followed by a much less cheerful consequence, in the form of demand pull, the evident struggle between increasing demand and stuck supply chains. This phenomenon is most notable in areas such as gas or traveling, that require a surplus of products or services to meet the sudden rise in demand. So, with so many people hitting the roads again and traveling more often, it's no surprise that the gasoline prices have skyrocketed while tickets and hotel room costs seemingly follow suit. It goes without saying then that dedicated action needs to be taken swiftly to level out these rapid changes and prevent businesses from growing too desperate under the pressure of excessive financial burden. 1. Cost push. Cost push inflation is a bane to the economy, however there are numerous instances where it can be inevitable. Nature in particular has been known to cause sudden price spikes due to natural disasters lowering supply and changing distribution processes. The most typical example of this is seen with weather events affecting food prices due to crop shortages, or transportation issues blocking routes needed for import and export. In such situations, price increases become unavoidable for producers, who are just trying to keep their operations afloat, leading to an increase in cost for consumers. Therefore, it's important to approach potential cost pushes with great caution, as they can have negative long-term effects on the economy, one that all can feel. But wait, there's more. To thank you for sticking with us until the end of this video, and because we like saying thank you, here is a bonus. Imported inflation. Imported inflation is an issue that many countries are struggling to manage. When the global price of a product increases, it not only impacts the countries that purchase the product, but it affects all those that rely on trade and the value of their country's currency too. To make matters worse, when a country's currency is constantly losing its value, then this could mean further significant increases in imported goods. This can have devastating consequences across industries from food production and transportation to retail and beyond. It's critical for governments to consider and combat imported inflation in order to prevent further economic instability for nations that may otherwise be vulnerable. Hey, we're so glad you took the time out of your busy day to watch today's video. If it resonated with any part or all, don't forget to subscribe. If this was something worth watching, we'll see you soon.